Hey guys, a Legacy here. After going through my initial League starter build for the Lifestacking Inquisitor, I also just wanted to make this in-depth endgame build guide to help you guys crush the endgame. If you have not watched the League starter video already, I would highly recommend that you watch that first. You can find the link in the description of this video. And with that out of the way, I first want to silence the doomers that believe that life stacking is dead, because I am here to prove that they're completely wrong. What you're seeing right now in the background is a budget in-game version of the build that is doing a T16 Nightmare map with more monster life and reduced aura effect. And as you can see, the damage there is completely fine, even on a budget. And here we have a showcase of the Uber Cortex fight with the exact same gear. And also just a little bit more about what I am actually using here for items. As mentioned in the other video, Wrath Pit Globe got quite sizable nerf because it went from a base of doing 5% spell damage and giving 5% extra crit per 100 life that you have. It went down to just give 3% for each of these. So for this build that I'm running right now, I am using a Wrath Pit that is just giving 4% of the spell damage per 100, because that's what you can actually do if you use the special Val Orb on a Wrath Pit Globe. So yeah, these numbers are completely realistic. On top of this, I am using the Quest of Desire with a +2 duration skill corruption, which also applies to Wave or Conviction. I also just want to point out this footage is taken before any of the buffs to all the spell gems, so expect to do even more damage when the league is live. The rest of the gear is something that I can show you shortly. But yeah, it is in-game, but at the same time, it's also relatively budget because there are no mirror tier items or anything like that just yet. I do have some mirror tier items that I want to showcase. But yeah, I will showcase it all a little bit later. But in any case, here's the gear that I'm actually using for this. So here's the Wrath Pit Globe that I'm using. And as you can see here, this is not quite the worst outcome, and it's simply because I could not find a Wrath Pit Globe with less than 5% increased spell critical strike chance. But this is also not the biggest issue, because there are so many ways in this build here that you can actually play around the crit to still be completely crit capped. So other than that, I am using a Crest of Desire with this implicit corruption, +2 to level of socketed duration gems. This is something I typically always do during a league, that I just buy a bunch of Crest of Desires with +8 to level of socketed gems. And I just go to the temple and double corrupt them. And typically it takes me between, I don't know, 10 to 20 tries or something like that before I find a plus level of something that I can actually use for the build. Apart from that, I am using the Dark Seer, just a completely regular one. There's nothing special about this. However, next patch, you will be able to corrupt scepters so they can get plus to, I believe it's fire skill gems, cold, lightning, maybe also others that I've missed. But in any case, this is just going to be immensely more powerful. So for the in-game guide, I have also included that you can get plus another spell level on this one here. But yeah, obviously it's not in the game yet, so I can't really showcase it. Something else that I have this focused amulet here. This is pretty good. It's by no means mirror tier or anything like that, because if you really want to just go completely nuts, you can spend several mirrors and get something like +2 minimum frenzy charges or +2 skill gems or something like that. I typically never bother with that. I just go for global critical strike multiplier and just some maximum life. And similarly with the ring here, Calandra's Touch, just regular mage blood with 4 flasks. If you really want to just go nuts, well, you can also get one that gives 5 magical utility flasks that is always being used. I don't personally bother with that, because the unique flasks that you can actually use with this build are pretty powerful as they are. Apart from that, using Annihilation's Approach, this is super budget. Like something with this corruption here is something that you can easily get for really cheap. And yeah, last thing here is just some gloves. They have increased life regeneration rate, some life, some chaos resistance, and just some more resistance. There's nothing really too special about these. And of course, I also cannot forget about one of the most important pieces, which is Count's Heart, that has been corrupted with a volatile Valorb to get this outcome here. The maximum roll here, I believe, is 1,220. However, if you really want to go completely nuts, you can actually also completely gamble all of your currency away by getting it enchanted, which is going to give you, I believe, it's just 15% more, or not more, but 15% increased life as an enchant, and then you can corrupt it, and then you can get something, I believe it's like 1,450 or something like that. There are a couple of them on the trade site, but yeah, they are worth so many mirrors. Yeah, I am pretty happy about just this one here. I usually never want to go any further than this. The next thing that is going to be really, really huge for the endgame build is using a Spectre and an Animate Guardian setup. So there are quite a few things here to cover, but let's first go through the different Spectres. So first of all, what is really important to note here is that this implicit on the boots is really important to have. It can be either this one or +1 to level of socketed gems. Either of them would be completely fine. And the reason for this is that we want the raised Spectre gem to be at least level 24. And the reason for this is that when it gets to level 24, we can actually raise 3 Spectres instead of just 2. And yeah, the support gems that we're using here is just minion life support and meat shield support, and of course Animate Guardian. So when it comes to the different Spectres that you can use, there are quite a few different options that you can benefit from. What I'm doing on this character right now is that I have the Perfect Forest Tiger that gives me haste, which is just really, really nice. I mean, it makes me faster, it makes me cast faster, it's super, super nice. And of course, it also gives frenzy charges, but that is a little bit inconsistent. Apart from that, I am using a must-have here, which is this one down here, the Perfect Pain Artist. This one gives bait critical strike chance and critical strike multiplier, and on top of that, it casts Zealotry. And yeah, it is just huge. The Spectre is a little bit squishy, so it might sometimes die, but nevertheless, it is absolutely worth it because we are not gem starved in this build at all. So yeah, we can easily just plot in some Spectres and just use them whenever they're alive. And well, if they die, they die. The build is still completely fine. And then the last thing that I'm using here, or could be using, it is the Perfect Spirit of Fortune. And by itself, if I don't have anything special, this is completely useless because Wrath is not applicable for this build. Wrath is completely useless. Same thing with lightning damage of nearby allies is lucky. The reason why something like this could be worth using is because of Watch's Eyes. So right now I have Wrath because I am using this Spectre. And then if I, for instance, were to use this particular Watch's Eye here, you can see the bottom mod here says gain 24% of physical damage as extra lightning damage while affected by Wrath. Huge DPS increase right there. And yeah, it also has a 120% increased critical strike chance against enemies on consecrated ground while affected by Zealotry. And yeah, I'm also affected by Zealotry because of the Perfect Pain Artist. So something like this can easily be done. Obviously, it always depends on which type of Watcher's Eye that are available. I'm going to go through just quickly the other ones that I have here, just so you guys can see a bit of the possibilities. Like here, for instance, you can get extra critical strike, which is flat. So if I were to use this one, for instance, then I would just completely be crit capped. So yeah, you can use this one, right? I can use it to always have phasing because I'm also afflicted by haste. This one here, yeah, nothing really too special. I don't know why I put this one in. This one here could also be useful if I just, let's say, have a really, really cheap, or not cheap, but a really low level precision gem, then I can also get extra crit multi. So yeah, there are like so many different options that you can use, but mostly it depends on the Spectres that you want to use. So yeah, you can mix and match however you like. Some other Spectres that I potentially could recommend, depending on your choices for the endgame build, is Perfect Warlord. Then you just get endurance charges all the time. The reason why I'm not using this one is because I like to do ultimatum a lot. and there is an option in the ultimatum modifiers that might strip away my charges, and I don't want that. So that's why I'm just using permanent endurance charges through Grand Spectrum Jewels. And this one, Perfect Forest Warrior, this is also something I could use to have Onslaught. Typically, I would use a Perfect Forest Warrior instead of something like Perfect Spirit of Fortune. Yeah. Then, in regards to the Animate Guardian, we just need to quickly go over to POB so I can go into depth with that one. For the Animate Guardian, we are using a pretty standard setup. We are using Kingmaker. It's just to go to item for Animate Guardians, right? It just gives us so much, both in terms of utility, defensive measures, and damage. It's just it's a no-brainer. Then we are using Garb of the Ephemeral. This makes us immune to slow, so to say. It's super nice, and it also makes enemies unable to actually crit us, which is huge. Of course, the Animate Guardian sometimes dies, then we are unprotected, but the build is still so tanky, so it doesn't really matter that much. Then we are using a pair of gloves. These gloves does not have to be rare. The most important thing about these gloves is actually the two implicits here, Enfeeble and Temporal Chains. It's just something that is going to make us a lot more tanky whenever the Animate Guardian actually curses something. And for the rest of the stats, just try to get something with some resistances. Usually I'm able to snipe something like, not like this. I mean, these are like really good gloves, but usually I would be able to get something with some decent resistances for fairly cheap with these implicits. Then we have the Windscreen Boots. It's simply just to allow the Animate Guardian to use two cursors, right, in combination with the gloves. So really nice. And the last thing here, and this is something that is going to get changed in the new league, and that is Mask of the Stitch Demon. So it used to be like this, that it would regenerate 1% of life per 500 maximum energy shield that it had. Now it is based on the player. However, I do not believe that this is going to be an issue for this build, because let me just go to my endgame loadout. In this build, we have a lot of energy shield, right? We have 4,850, so this translates to 9% regen as a base for the actual Animate Guardian. And then it's boosted even further by our Vitality. So I really don't think that this is going to be an issue with this upgrade. And hopefully, I think it's Mask of the Stitch Demon is going to be significantly cheaper, because when it used to work, where it was based on the Animate Guardian's life or an energy shield, then it was just like insanely expensive. So hopefully this is gonna be a lot cheaper now. But this is just the basic setup. This is the way that I would always suggest to play with an Animate Guardian. The next thing I think is incredibly important is to upgrade, or not upgrade, but actually get some large cluster jewels. And the way that these large cluster jewels would be something similar to this. It needs to be 8 passive, so we don't have to use a lot of travel, and there aren't really any notables on them that we can actually use. So get one without notables. Try to get something along the lines of these stats here. If you can't get it, that's also fine. It's completely fine to just use whatever. The most important thing is just that it can cover some small gaps that there might be in the build, like for instance chaos resistance, because chaos resistance is quite difficult to get by in the endgame version, similarly with dexterity. So might be on the lookout for those, and the rest is just luxury. It's nothing that you really need. If you have enough passage points for it, without sacrificing too much in the passive tree, you should get two cluster jewels. And the reason for this is just that it allows us to equip so many different jewels that is going to be so powerful for this build. So to give a few examples of this, right? We're already using the Light of Meaning. We're already using Glorious Vanity. We are already using, Foulborn the Red Dream, using something like this. But there are also some other extremely powerful jewels here that we can be using. Like, for instance, we can use the different Grand Spectrum jewels. What I'm specifically using in this setup here, I am using one that gives us minimum frenzy charges per Grand Spectrum. I'm using one of these. And then I am using one of these that gives +1 to minimum endurance charges per grand spectrum, and I am using one that gives increased maximum life per grand spectrum. You can mix and match these however you like. It's just important to mention, right, that the minimum charges that you have also needs to, how can I put it, be it should not exceed the maximum charges that you have. So this means, for instance, let's say that you only have 3 max charges, and let's say that you might want to put in 2 of these here, for instance. That does not mean that you get, like, let's say 4 minimum frenzy charges. No, that will still just be 3. I hope it makes sense, but nevertheless, just only get 1 of each of these. Do not get more of them, because yeah, then you are not going to be good to yourself. Something here that is also extremely powerful are the different forbidden flesh and forbidden flame jewels that you can use for this build. And I just want to go through a few things here in terms of what could be good to use, because this is really where it gets to be a bit complicated, because like there's so many different setups that you can be using for this. So what I'm using currently in this PUB here is Arcane Blessing for the Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame Jewels. And yeah, whenever I'm using this, right, it just gives me 20% more spell damage, which is super nice. It gives me Arcane Surge whenever I hit something with a spell, which is also huge, because this is actually the only way, or one of the only ways, that I can actually get Arcane Surge when it's just a pure life build. One reason for why I have this is because it's actually also strong defensively, and I'm just going to quickly show why. Because there is a rune graft that I have over here that actually gives me 15% increased life regeneration rate to me, just because I have Arcane Surge. So yeah, that's the reason for this. As mentioned, you can do so many other things here. For instance, let's say that you don't want to be using the grand spectrums that I mentioned before. Well, then you can use Conviction of Power. Right, this might be really useful if you're struggling to cap your crit, because then it gives you extra power charges, right, and you get it for absolute free. Of course, then you don't have the frenzy charges, right? But then, hey, maybe you can get the frenzy charges some way else. Something that I would also potentially use would be this one up here, Unwavering Faith. This would actually allow you to use 2 heralds in the build, and maybe even a small aura extra, simply because it gives a lot of extra reservation efficiency. Of course, you can also use something like Harmony of Purpose if you would just like to run around with shrines, right? I mean, there are many possibilities. The last possibility, and this is going to be a little bit weird, but please try to follow me. Let's say that I would not be using this mirror tier crown here. Let's say that I want to be using my Crested Desire, right? Because maybe I don't have enough currency to actually get the mirror tier. So let's just get this, and let me just go in here and just disable, where is it? Just disable these extra gems, right? Because otherwise that would just be completely wrong. So you see, this is my current damage with the ascendancy that I have right now. And it's primarily this ascendancy here, Inevitable Judgment. So if I were to remove this, just pay attention to how much it actually changes, or how little it actually changes my damage. You see, it's almost negligible. The reason for this is that what the quality does for Wave or Conviction of Thrathas is that it penetrates enemy elemental resistance. This is why Wave or Conviction of Thrathas is really powerful to use in the Crested Desire. And another reason for why I really like it is because it basically allows me to just completely skip out on this third ascendancy here, which leaves us with a lot of different options. So what you, for instance, can do is that you can go down here to some of the bloodlines. You can, for instance, go and choose this one here, right? So let's just read what exactly this one does. Basically, if you do not have any gems in your chest, which we do not, because, well, we have a contract, there are no gem sockets, then we actually are completely immune to elemental ailments. And this is all elemental ailments, like even Scourge, Brittle, etc. So this could be something. But there are also other things that you can actually use for this, let's say maybe earlier during the game, if that's what you want to do. You can also not have any gems in your gloves, for instance, right? Then you're crit immune. Or, well, your action speed cannot be modified below base value if you have no gems in your boot, for instance. Another thing here is that, let's say you do not care too much about the block that the buff Tempest Shield gives us, because we are using Tempest Shield, right? Then we could, for instance, disable this one, and we could potentially replace it with, let's say, Herald of Purity. Let's just see what that would do if that was something that we were to do. Because then it's going to boost our damage again. This is just really quick, a legacy from the future. I realized after listening to my recordings that I didn't explain properly why we could get rid of Tempest Shield if we were to go with the Bloodline. It's simply because the Bloodline would automatically make us immune to shock, and then the Tempest Shield is basically only used for the actual block spell chance. So yeah, it's just to clarify that. So back to present legacy. Another thing that you can do if you really want to be incredibly chunky is that you can use this one down here. Well, maybe let me just click this one here off. You can go down and use Corruption's Employees. What this does is that if you have 6 corrupted items, which I do currently, and by the way, it's not easy to get 6 corrupted items in this build. It's just if you want to, right? Then you can actually get 5% extra maximum resistance for all of your resistances, and this is actually including chaos resistance. So I can just go up here in configuration, and it's called Everlasting Sacrifice, this one here. So let's see what happens when I actually press this one. Then I get these extra maximum resistances over here, and yeah, once again, it is huge. So granted, right now I do not have more than just the 76 chaos resistance, so I obviously would need more than that, but you can also check the effective hit pool up here just to check exactly how much it actually changes depending on if it's on or off. So yeah, pretty huge. Just to go back to the whole thing about the forbidden flame and flesh jewels, you can basically use all of the different suggestions that I've come up with so far, but there is also another thing that you can do, because let's for instance say that something like Pious Path is like super cheap, right? I mean, let's say that each of them might cost like just 1 divine, right? Then you could potentially just unallocate this one here, then get the Forbidden Flame and Flesh Jewel, and then you can choose this one down here, right? Then you still have these 3, and then you would actually still be able to use any of the bloodlines down here. That could potentially be something that could also work for you guys. Yeah, just some suggestions, right? It's just like there's so many different ways that you can actually build this. All right, now we are going into the more juicy territory about things that is really going to elevate this build here to completely new levels. And the first thing I would like to put some emphasis on would be to actually get the Wrathpit Globe with some really nice corruptions. And what I mean by this is that if you use a Volatile Valorb on the new Wrathpit Globe, it can go from 3% increased spell damage per 100% player life and 3% increased spell critical strike chance, and then it can go to 4% for both of these. Of course, it would be nice if we could also get 8% for sacrifice life that you use whenever you trigger a spell skill, and some more increased maximum life, but those are like less important. But it's going to boost your damage by so much if you can get the increased spell damage and increased spell critical strike chance to 4% instead of just the 3%. So yeah, really important that you eventually would swap to this in the late game. Similarly, with the Cam's Heart, we briefly spoke about this earlier. Also get this one. I have no idea how expensive this is going to be. And there's also one thing I just quickly would like to discuss. With the changes to Legion, there might also be some really nice non-corrupted implicits from the Legion mechanic on Cam's Heart. But yeah, we don't know how available they are going to be. We don't know what type of implicits that we exactly can get. So this is something that we would have to actually look into for the upcoming patch. Apart from that, I just want to quickly go over some flasks, right? You can use Wine of the Prophet. This is honestly just like, it just feels amazing to use it. It's not needed at all because yeah, you are immortal anyway whenever you're mapping or doing some mobbing content. It just feels really nice to use Wine of the Prophet. So that's one thing you can do. You can use Bottled Faith if that is what you wish to do. That's just like straight up extra damage. And if you are using a skill that does not clear super well, definitely use Aria Ascend. Really, really big suggestion from here. And now for some of the really juicy things. So I was earlier talking about a mirror helm. So something like this. This is something that is really aspirational, right? I don't know how many people that would have the endurance to actually go and farm out a mirror and at the same time also pay the actual mirror fee for a helm like this. But if you get this, it's actually going to straight up double your damage. Yeah, it is so recommended, and you also don't need to worry about crit at all if you get a helmet like this. Then for corruptions on Mage's Blood, you could potentially look for something like this. This is also huge to potentially get. And let's say that you don't think that the build by itself has enough damage. You could go for an item like this. This is another complete mirror tier item. Like all of these are just max rolled, right? And with the setup that I have right now with wave of conviction, no, what is it called? Wave of conviction of phrases. That's what's called, yeah. It deals physical damage and then it converts it to fire damage. So if you use this one, you are going to deal a truckload of damage. I would probably still prefer to just use the Dark Seer with the proper implicit on that gives +2 to the skill gem level that I'm using. But this one is also an option if you just really want to just deal the most damage that is possible. And the last thing I want to mention is something I forgot before, which is just this gem here. This can also just really boost your damage by so much, right? If you use elemental weakness in your build, or even if you're not using it, and let's say you want to use this gem, you should be using elemental weakness. It's just straight up gives us 4% extra damage of a random element. Super, super, super nice. And yeah, this particular one that I have here, it also makes me immune to exposure. So if you're just on the border between being elemental risk capped and not, well, this can also just help you to actually never dip down. So yeah, this is just like the extra thing. You don't need any of these things here, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm still going to get this mirror helm. I'm still going to try and see if I can find a nice Mage Blood with the proper implicit. I'm probably not going to use this one because, yeah, it's not really needed, right? But it is a possibility. And the last thing I also just want to mention here is just the tattoos. These 3 tattoos here are the tattoos that you want to use whenever you have the attributes for it. And that's also another reason why I don't want to use this one, because it is pretty heavy on the intellect requirement, 245. So then I would much rather just have some increased effect of health buffs on me or extra chaos resistance depending on what I need. And yeah, for the rest of the strength, I'm just going to get some extra block because it gives me 2% extra block because I have my block chance doubled because of my keystone that I have in the passive tree. But yeah, nevertheless, it's just a bunch of different options, right? So there are so many different things that you can do with this build, and you can build it to be more tanky, you can build it to be dealing a lot more damage. It's really up to you what you want to do with it. And then the last thing that I think is really important to cover in this video is in which order that you should upgrade the different aspects of the endgame build when you're ready for it. And the gatekeeper of going to the endgame build is most definitely the Mage Blood. And we need it for one reason only, and that is actually to cap our resistances, so it puts a lot less strain on the gear that we actually have. So what I'm using here, I'm just using 3 elemental flasks with increased effect and some other useful. I think it's prefixes, isn't it? No, suffixes. I'm using some good suffixes with this also. And yeah, just Mage Blood is what enables the endgame build, basically. So let's say that you actually have Mage Blood, and let's say that you have acquired some decent flasks. The next big thing that you should do is to upgrade both your ring and your amulet. And when I say ring, right, it's because just get 1 ring and then get Calandra's Touch as well. For the rings, you don't need to go as crazy as I have done here for starters when you just step into the end game. You can literally just get something with a lot of life with no negative downsides. Like, I believe there's so many people that are going to find these rings here, right? And I mean, once again, life is just huge whenever you get this, because we scale so well from the life, even with the rat pit nerfs. So yeah, get an amulet with a ton of life, no negative downsides or very little negative downsides, and similar with the ring. And then you are pretty golden. On top of that, you need another pair of gloves, because we can no longer be using Maligar's Virtuosity. We simply just need more generic stats on the actual gloves. And yeah, you can just find something similar to these, maybe with less stats or something. It doesn't really matter all too much. The most important thing is just you cover the different gaps that might be in the build. And the last thing that you want to prioritize as soon as possible is the Annihilation's Approach boots. They give you permanent adrenaline. It also means that you can actually drop the Pantheon that you're currently using, which is Soul the Brine King, because then you're automatically going to be immune to both chill, and you're going to be immune to freeze. You're going to run a lot faster. You're going to have more cast speed. You're going to have a lot more damage. The downside is, of course, that you take extra fire damage, but it's really not an issue at this point here at all. So yeah, definitely get Annihilation's Approach. And as mentioned before, right, try to get it with a useful implicit on it. I don't believe that these are going to be expensive at all. And then just to summarize how I think that you should prioritize everything. Obviously, we have just gone through the basics of the first few upgrades that you should do. Everything after that is, I would say, up to you. Because I don't know what the prices are. I don't know what is going to be really cost efficient. I really don't have any clue about it. I don't know how cheap Cam's Hard Corrupted is going to be. I don't know how cheap or expensive the Dark Seer Corruption is going to be. I don't know how expensive the Wrath Pit Globe Corruption is going to be, or the gems, or anything like that at all. So I would really just say, just stick with this list here and try to look around on the trade website, see what might be beneficial to you for your current budget, because every single small upgrade that you do to the build is just going to be significant, and you can feel the upgrade straight away. So yeah, try as much as you can to just like always be looking at the different upgrades. Maybe like make a shopping list or something like that. See what is going to be beneficial. So yeah, that was the endgame guide here that I have. So I hope you liked the video. If you like it, please like and subscribe the video. And yeah, if you have any questions, I am still going to be streaming at the league start. And otherwise, you're more than welcome to just like ask your questions down in the comments or drop by the stream when I actually start to stream. So yeah, it's that was it. Have a great day, guys.